Well, as I said earlier on, for me, sport has been central to almost everything at present. And I suppose it's because you can enjoy sport, the wins and the sad losses, but in sport you can recognize the nobility of sports people in all the various competitions that they take place. And nobody, it would be very hard for the last 4 weeks to ignore the World Cup from America. With the highs and lows of absolute success shining in the faces of young men as they won another game, and the tragic failure and tears in other young faces as they lost a game and knew they were going home from many different countries. I suppose mostly the names that echo not only throughout America but throughout the world were the strikers from the different teams. Haaland from Norway, Jude Bellingham and Harry Kane from England, Kylian Mbappe and Yamal from Spain, and of course the wonderful, talented and controversial Messi from Argentina. Possibly the greatest footballer ever. The passion of the fans. Who will forget the images of the Scottish fans, led by pipers, every single one of them wearing a kilt of different clans as they marched to the grounds, as if they were heading to the front. It was an amazing sight, lines and lines of pipers. The celebratory singing of Hey Jude to Jude Bellingham, the Beatles classic of many years ago. The noblest of sports people, a gentle person who claims that he owes everything to his noble mother, who travels everywhere with him to make sure he never misbehaves. And for the record, whilst England has not won a trophy since the World Cup in '66, it should always remember that's the men. The Lionesses won the European Cup in 2025, and they were in the final with Spain in 2023, when Spain won 1-0. It surprised me in a way that Hey Jude did not become the anthem of the English fans, although they sang it after every game to Jude Bellingham. But it, however, pushed its coming home well and truly into second, maybe even third place, and to some extent seemed to disappear from the terraces. But the one that did become the anthem and was performed beautifully at the first night of the proms a couple of nights ago was Wonderwall, written and performed by Oasis. It was Noel Gallagher who wrote Wonderwall in 1995, and it was on the album, that great Oasis album, What's the Story, Morning Glory. Liam, the other brother, was not sure of it. He didn't get it, and he wasn't exactly in love with the song Wonderwall. But the fans, the Oasis fans, decided otherwise and insisted that it became the anthem of all Oasis concerts. It's a very interesting song. It is mystical, and in some ways it is deeply, deeply religious. It expresses an awareness of a person occupying your thoughts, whether that person is real or unreal or imaginary. Someone who is your anchor, as expressed in the hymn, Does Your Anchor Hold? And I was talking about this to Violet up in Sheena's yesterday afternoon. I used to always smile to myself when we would sing, "Does Your Anchor Hold?" as I'd look across and watch Anne Stewart singing. And Anne sang it with great gusto, but with a sort of a childish approach, because I think Anne was singing that since she was probably 5 years old, sitting over there singing, "Does Your Anchor Hold?" And somehow I managed to, in my own imagination, to fuse those two things. Does your anchor hold and Wonderwall? In some extent, the anchor being that imaginary person. An imaginary friend who will come and save you from yourself. This is essentially the intent of Noel Gallagher behind the lyrics. There's a suggestion that Noel was inspired by George Harrison's solo album, Wonderwall Music. Now the interesting thing, in George Harrison's album, Wonderwall Music, it's mostly instrumental, but some lyrics, but those lyrics are not necessarily in English, they are in Hindu. Because, as we know, George Harrison was deeply influenced by Indian classical music. I'm no expert on George Harrison, and unfortunately, Roger's not here today, and Roger is the expert on George Harrison. But I imagine George Harrison to be deeply influenced by mystics, not just of the Indian tradition, but of all faiths, but especially esoteric Eastern religions. At first, I really couldn't make a connection between Noel Gallagher and George Harrison. If you think about them, try and imagine the two of them, Noel Gallagher and George Harrison. They couldn't be more different. I mean, the Gallaghers couldn't be more different from everybody. But just try and imagine George Harrison and Noel Gallagher. And yet Noel intended Wonderwall to be an appeal to the imaginary friend that was your Wonderwall. The Gallaghers, of course, the Gallaghers hail of Irish extraction, and they would have been raised in the Catholic faith, and the Catholic faith is full of mysticism, it's full of magic, and they would have been familiar with all that. They would have been familiar with the numerous saints. As we used to say in Dublin, the Protestants knew all the names of the flowers, and we knew all the names of the saints. And they would have been familiar with that. And they might have even selected a saint to be your personal saint, which is a common practice within Catholicism. Call it your imaginary friend, call it an act of faith, call it an act of belief. But that's what I believe inspired Noel Gallagher to write Wonderwall. And the saints give you protection as an individual, and they love you as an individual. And you shower upon them your devotion. Because maybe you're going to be the one that saves me, and after all, you're my Wonderwall. Possibly providing hope for the future, comfort in sorrow, and salvation in so many ways. It's interesting at times to think that some atheists, not all, when they poke fun at Christians by accusing them of having an imaginary friend, and yet that song has become such an inspiring song. Not just the anthem of the English football fans as the team approached them after each game, and they just howled out this song, every single lyric of Wonderwall. Not only because of every Oasis concert, the crowds join as one, nearly as if in a cathedral or in a religious experience, and sing back to the two Gallagher brothers, Wonderwall. And if that is not a religious experience, I don't know what a religious experience is. I remember one beautiful but yet very sad story, and it involved a young woman in Dublin. She had lost her sister in a terrible road accident, and she was, of course, devastated, shattered by her loss of her beloved sister, and they were incredibly close. And she managed, as she said, to survive by considering or sensing her sister as her guardian angel. As her guardian angel. That's not to be mocked. I don't know how psychologists might tell me what's happening there, but that is human condition. That is a human's way of dealing with such tragedy. That in her own way, her sister became her Wonderwall, her friend, her guardian angel, watching over her, talking to her, minding her, comforting her throughout her life. Christians of many persuasions have a strong feeling that they have a personal relationship with Jesus. And they've expressed that in so many diverse ways and in so many different ways of understanding the person that we call Jesus. And it's not unique to Christians. People of many faiths and of no faiths will tell you they have a similar experience. And then those who prefer to apply directly the concept of the divine to comfort them and protect them in a creative way, in an imaginary way, in a real sense of somebody minding over you, as in Psalm 9:14, promises that God will cover you with his feathers, and that under his wings you will find refuge, acting as a shield and rampart against fear and danger. Because maybe you're going to be the one that saves me, and after all, you're my Wonderwall. Amen.